Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are really getting into something unusual. It's a source that honestly feels pretty out there, a theoretical paper called The Exile Hypothesis, Humanity's Containment and Renewal on Earth.
Right, by scientific analyst Justin Lake.
Exactly, and it's a challenging piece.
It definitely grabs your attention. I mean, it basically reframes our entire existence, doesn't it? Lake isn't just rehashing old creation stories. He's asking a bigger question.
Which is,
Why do we, as a species, seem to have this, incredible potential, but at the same time, we're hemmed in by such harsh limits?
yeah, and that's exactly what we want to unpack today, this core idea of Lake's. It's provocative, no doubt about it. His theory says our time here on Earth is not the beginning.
Not at all.
He calls it a continuation or even a reintroduction. Deliberate, regulated, following some kind of massive screw-up with power somewhere else, some other reality or system.
And the paper's abstract sets up that contradiction right away.
Yeah.
Lake describes Earth as both a sanctuary and safeguard.
Sanctuary and safeguard, okay.
Yeah, so it's nurturing, right? It gives us everything we need to survive, to live. But, and this is the crucial part, it's also engineered, designed to limit these huge destructive capabilities that he thinks humanity once possessed. So that tension, preservation versus restriction, that's basically the defining feature of our existence, according to this hypothesis.
It feels like a really big framework. It connects, the cosmic scale, huge universal ideas with our own personal human feeling.
Absolutely.
Like if you listening right now have ever had that feeling, that nagging sense that you should be capable of more, or maybe you've wondered why all these ancient stories from all over the world talk about a golden age and then some kind of fall.
Yeah.
Or being kicked out of paradise.
Yeah, the Eden story, the cyclical ages in Hinduism.
Right. Lake suggests this isn't just coincidence, not just shared myths. It could be a shared memory, a collective echo of a real prehistory, something foundational that happened before Earth.
It makes you look at our limitations differently. Things like, we can't just snap our fingers and cure diseases, or why traveling even to Mars is so incredibly hard, or just the daily grind of needing to work to survive.
Yeah.
Under this theory, those aren't just flaws. They're not inherent problems with the universe or with us. They're regulations, necessary temporary measures put in place.
So we're basically contained, a regulated species.
In a way, yes. We're undergoing some complex long-term rehab program.
Okay, let's dig into that relocation idea then. Part 1, defining the relocation. Lake starts with something I found really interesting, how consistent these fall narratives are across cultures.
It is striking, isn't it?
He points out that almost every major tradition, whether it's Eastern ideas of ages declining or Western stories about Eden and being cast out, they all describe humanity falling from some higher, more powerful state. And it's not just one or two cultures, it's global. He thinks that consistency points to something real, a defining event for our entire species.
And he gives it a cosmic explanation. It's not just a story, it's a mechanism. And crucially, he distinguishes it from creation itself. Lake isn't saying we were created on Earth in this limited state.
Right, that's key.
He's proposing we were relocated. He argues humanity once lived somewhere else, another realm or system, he calls it. And there we had, extraordinary abilities and knowledge.
Abilities we can barely imagine now.
Exactly. Capabilities that gave us a kind of mastery over reality itself, maybe manipulating energy or space-time, things that are purely theoretical for us now. The move to Earth was like a transfer, a hard reset for the species.
Okay, but why? Was it just punishment? You messed up, go to Earth.
He argues it was more than just punishment. The main driver was corrective. It was a process of correction and renewal. This is where his approach feels different. He's not trying to debunk religious texts or anything.
Yeah.
No, he's looking at them and asking, could these ancient stories actually be records? Records that fit within a much larger cosmic design, a design focused on restoring us but also restraining us.
So it's like cosmic justice, but with a rehabilitation goal.
You could almost think of it like cosmic jurisprudence, yeah. The fall, in this view, wasn't just one person making a mistake in a garden. It was the way a species that had become dangerously overpowered was, removed, taken out of an environment where its misuse of power was maybe threatening the stability of that whole other realm or system.
Wow. So the relocation was like cosmic triage, preventing a bigger catastrophe.
That seems to be the implication, preventing something potentially universal, not just planetary.
Okay, so let's apply that lens to, say, the Adam and Eve story, the one most people in the West know. How does Lake interpret that?
He argues it's not the story of humanity starting from scratch, it's the record of our reintroduction, putting us into this new environment, Earth, where the rules of the old place just don't apply anymore. It's the moment the containment policy kicked in.
A moment the walls went up, so to speak.
Pretty much. And that transition, he analyzes it closely. We go from this perfect state, Eden, which Lake suggests might have been some kind of transitional zone, maybe still operating under some old rules temporarily.
Like a buffer zone?
Possibly.
Mhm.
And then we enter this world defined by struggle and limitation, hardship. And he says this means two things at once.
Okay.
One, yes, it reflects the moral consequences of whatever happened before. But two, and maybe more importantly for his theory, it marks the activation of this intentional relocation, a deliberate divine act.
And the purpose was?
To preserve humanity, keep the species going, but also enforce a system that forces moral development. Development through facing resistance, through struggle.
So the limits, the struggle, they're actually tools for growth. It's about restricting our access to that old power.
Precisely. Restricting physical access to universal power until our moral character, our wisdom, catches up.
That's a heavy idea.
It is. And Lake supports this by pointing out that this theme, being exiled, needing to follow rules or a covenant, the hope of eventual redemption, it shows up in so many different traditions, not just Abrahamic ones.
Like what?
Well, think about indigenous stories across the Americas, for instance. Many have tales of previous worlds, or suns, that were destroyed because of human imbalance or failure, leading to a forced restart in the current world. It's this recurring pattern: misuse of power, cosmic intervention, a new beginning under stricter rules. The whole story of humanity then becomes this long process of working our way back to full capacity, but under careful, necessary supervision.
Okay, so if this is true, it can't just be a philosophical idea. It has to connect to the real world, to physics, right? How does Lake explain the nuts and bolts of our reality? This brings us to the containment principle he talks about.
Yes, section 3. This is where it gets really concrete and maybe the most challenging part of his hypothesis. He describes Earth, again, with that paradox, nurturing and restrictive.
How are the limits enforced then, if it's not magic walls?
He suggests they're enforced by the very fabric of the universe. The physical laws we study in science, gravity, thermodynamics, the speed of light, and also simply the vast cosmic distance separating us from everything else.
Wait, so things like the speed of light aren't just how the universe happens to be. They're part of the containment.
That's exactly what he's proposing. We tend to focus on the nurturing aspects, right? Earth's perfect gravity, the magnetic shield, the right elements for life.
Sure, the Goldilocks zone stuff.
Right. But Lake says the restrictive parts like light speed being a hard limit, entropy making things break down, the sheer difficulty of material science for space travel, these are just as deliberate. They're engineered components of the safeguard.
So the universe itself is the fence.
Essentially, yes. It operates like a set of cosmic guardrails. Those physical limits we see as like engineering challenges to overcome. Lake frames them as finely tuned safety measures, obstacles put there deliberately.
For our own good.
For our own good, yeah. Preventing us from easily accessing the kind of power, the kind of tools that he theorizes we misused so badly before.
Okay, let's nail down that cosmic distance constraint he mentions.
Yeah.
That sounds specific.
It's a core piece of his argument. He suggests that our inability, our chronic failure, really, to travel beyond our own solar system may not be accidental.
Not accidental, meaning it's designed that way.
Yes. Think about it. What scientists often call the tyranny of the rocket equation, the unbelievable amount of energy needed for interstellar travel, Lake reframes that. He sees it not as a random difficulty, but as a divine or systemic constraint.
A purposeful limitation.
Exactly. A purposeful design preventing premature expansion. Because if we could easily hop between stars...
We might just repeat the same mistakes on a bigger scale.
Precisely. The temptation to rebuild whatever powerful systems caused the original fall or catastrophe would likely be overwhelming. The whole point of earthly containment, the rehabilitation, would be nullified almost instantly.
But hang on. Isn't the standard scientific view just, well, the universe is vast, it's expanding, light has a speed limit? These are just natural laws emerging from the Big Bang and physics. How does Lake counter Occam's razor? You know, the idea that the simplest explanation is usually best. Isn't design containment way more complex than that's just how physics works?
That's the critical pushback, absolutely. And Lake sort of sidesteps it by shifting the frame. He doesn't deny the math of relativity or the laws of thermodynamics. He doesn't say Einstein was wrong.
Okay.
Instead, he proposes that those very laws, the fundamental constants of the universe, might have been, well, chosen or set with a specific purpose in mind, a moral outcome even.
So the laws themselves are part of the design.
Yes. If the original misuse of power involved, say, easily manipulating space-time or energy on a massive scale, then what's the perfect countermeasure? You establish hard, almost unbreakable limits, like the speed of light as an absolute barrier, and you place immense physical distances between potential resources or destinations.
Making the universe itself a kind of self-enforcing isolation cell.
A cosmic safe house, maybe? Where the combination to get out isn't technological, it's ethical, it's spiritual maturity.
Wow.
That's the synthesis Lake offers. The containment mechanism isn't something added to the universe, it's built into it. He explicitly says physical law itself serves as part of a divine containment mechanism.
So it directly connects abstract ideas like exile or judgment to things scientists measure every day: quantum mechanics, gravity.
Exactly. The difficulty of achieving fusion power, the constraints of chemistry, the pull of gravity keeping us pinned down, all part of the system ensuring we stay local, we stay grounded.
Yeah.
Until we're ready.
Ready in what sense? This analysis of restraint seems entirely focused on timing in our development, right?
Absolutely. The whole point of the design, he argues, is to prevent expansion until humanity matures, ethically and spiritually. The containment isn't meant to be permanent, it's conditional.
So we're basically locked in this solar system.
Until we demonstrate, collectively, that we won't repeat the kind of destructive behavior that got us exiled in the first place. Until we show profound humility, responsibility, balance, the vastness of the universe remains functionally off limits, guarded by physics itself.
That reframes scientific progress in a strange way. Every breakthrough becomes like a test of character.
In a sense, yes. If we unlock fusion power or create true AI or learn to manipulate genetics profoundly, the universe, or the system Lake posits, is watching. How do we use it?
It puts a huge weight on global ethics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which isn't something we usually link directly to, say, developing faster rockets.
Not at all. We pour billions into trying to break the physical limits. But maybe the real barrier isn't technological. Maybe it's moral.
Okay, so if we were relocated from this higher state, this place of extraordinary abilities, would there be echoes, traces left over? Lake gets into this, right? The signs of prior knowledge.
He does. Section 4. He argues there must be residual traces, and he looks for them in a couple of areas.
What kind of traces? Like old ruins?
Not necessarily physical ruins, though maybe that too. He focuses more on the psychological and intellectual remnants.
Psychological.
Yeah. First, he points to that deep, almost universal feeling of loss. That sense of longing that seems baked into the human condition. You know, the yearning for home or for heaven or some higher reality.
You know, feeling that something's missing?
Exactly. Lake interprets that not just as like spiritual aspiration, but as a potential echo, a distant memory of a prior existence, an inherited feeling of being displaced, like a species-wide phantom limb pain, remembering something that's not physically accessible anymore.
It's that feeling that this world, our current reality, is somehow less real or a shadow of something better.
It taps into that existential angst that fuels so much art, philosophy, religion, the feeling that we don't quite belong here. Lake's hypothesis gives that feeling a potential origin story. Maybe we don't belong here originally. And that memory is buried deep in our collective psyche.
It sounds a bit like Plato's idea, doesn't it? That learning is just remembering things the soul already knew.
Very similar. Or you could connect it to Jung's collective unconscious. Lake suggests these persistent psychological themes aren't just random, they're echoes of that prior realm. We're always searching for the rules, the feelings, the state of that old system because subconsciously it feels more right than the limited rules of this one.
Okay, that's the psychological side. What about the intellectual or historical side? The source mentions sudden advances in human civilization, language, and innovation as possible hints.
Right. This connects the inner feeling to outer history. Lake suggests we should look at those moments in the past that seem, well, almost inexplicable, sudden leaps.
Like what kind of leaps?
Think about something like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Around 12,000 years ago, suddenly you have this massive complex site with sophisticated stonework, carvings, apparent astronomical alignments, built by people who were supposedly just hunter-gatherers. Where did that knowledge, that organization, come from so quickly?
It does challenge the slow, gradual development model.
It does. Or think about the sudden emergence of complex mathematics in different cultures, or incredibly sophisticated language structures that appear relatively early. These sudden bursts of complexity, Lake argues, could be evidence of remnants of that earlier state of being resurfacing.
How would that work? How does his theory explain these jumps using residual knowledge?
Well, if humanity had vast knowledge in that prior realm, relocating us to Earth didn't necessarily erase that knowledge entirely. It suppressed it, put it behind the veil of containment, made it inaccessible through the new physical laws and maybe even biological
So
changes.
the knowledge is still there, just locked away.
Dormant, perhaps. Then, Lick suggests, when certain conditions are met here on Earth, maybe the species reaches a certain level of ethical maturity, or simply the right environmental or intellectual trigger occurs, fragments of that old knowledge can suddenly break through, bubble up into consciousness.
So it's not a genius inventing something entirely new out of nothing.
It might be a genius rediscovering or recollecting a piece of a much larger system that was already known deep down. Like recovering a corrupted file from an old hard drive, suddenly a piece becomes clear again.
That completely changes how we think about invention and discovery.
It does, and Lake ties this into another concept, ongoing supervision. He looks at the common religious or spiritual idea of divine guidance throughout history, prophets, inspired moments, maybe even subtle nudges in world events.
Yep.
He reinterprets that not as random interventions, but as part of the plan, ongoing supervision within the bounds of containment. It suggests we're not just dumped here and forgotten.
We're being monitored,
Managed. Yeah.
guided subtly, maybe nudged towards certain discoveries when we're ready, or perhaps even steered away from rediscovering the really dangerous parts of that old knowledge too soon before we have the wisdom to handle it.
Right.
It's like a cosmic curriculum, carefully managed.
Okay, this leads naturally into the purpose of all this. Part 4, rehabilitation and renewal. You mentioned earlier it's not meant as punishment. Exactly. Lake is very clear on this. His model does not frame Earth as punishment, but as opportunity. That shift in perspective is critical. It turns the whole narrative around. Earth isn't a prison sentence, it's a rehabilitation center, a preparation ground.
A place to get better, essentially.
Right. And this is where he flips the script on things we usually see as negative. Hardship, struggle, scarcity, limitations like aging or disease. In Lake's view, these aren't bugs in the system, they're features. They are essential catalysts for growth.
How so? How does hardship actually help? Seems counterintuitive.
Because the difficulty forces things that maybe weren't necessary in the prior realm of effortless power. Limitation is like a furnace for forging character. Lake points to 3 key qualities that get developed specifically because of these harsh conditions.
Okay, what are they?
First, learning through resistance. The fact that the physical world pushes back, that things are hard, forces us to study it carefully, slowly, methodically. That builds intellect, patience, the scientific method, all crucial counterweights to impulsive, reckless power.
Makes sense. You have to understand the rules before you can work within them.
Second, empathy. When everyone is struggling, when everyone is vulnerable, it creates shared experience. Maybe in a realm of unlimited power, empathy wasn't needed or didn't develop. But here, it's vital for cooperation, for society, for survival. You have to care about others in the group.
Because we're all in the same boat.
Pretty much. And third, growth catalyzed by scarcity. Having to work for things, build things, innovate under pressure. That drives spiritual and intellectual development in ways that effortless abundance never could. It forces creativity and resilience.
Okay, so we develop these qualities, patience, empathy, resilience, through struggle. And this is all leading somewhere, toward potential release.
Yes, towards what Lake calls greater responsibility in creation. But to get there, we have to demonstrate specific qualities while we're here, within this containment. We have to pass the test.
And what are the test criteria? What does humanity need to show?
He names 3 key moral benchmarks. These are like the graduation requirements for species human. First, moral balance. Can we handle powerful knowledge like nuclear energy or AI or genetic engineering without destroying ourselves or causing chaos? It's that constant tension, capability versus wisdom.
We're arguably being tested on that right now.
Constantly. Second, humility. A deep understanding that our existence isn't guaranteed, that power is a responsibility, not a right. Recognizing our own limits, respecting the boundaries set by the system or by a creator, not thinking we know everything.
That seems like a tough one for us.
Indeed. And third, perhaps most critical right now, stewardship. Can we take care of the resources we've been given? Can we manage life, our environment, responsibly? Starting with this planet, Lake implies our current environmental crisis isn't just a problem, it's maybe the final exam of the containment phase.
Wow, so if we can't even manage Earth sustainably,
Then we are demonstrably not ready for greater responsibility on a cosmic scale. If we fail the stewardship test here in this nurturing sanctuary, how could we possibly be trusted out there? The climate crisis, biodiversity loss. These aren't just environmental issues in Lake's view. They are fundamental indicators of our moral readiness, or lack thereof.
that puts incredible pressure on how we handle things like climate change.
It really does. It makes it cosmically significant. Which leads to his conclusion, synthesizing all this. If Earth is this preparation ground, then our progress, especially our ethical, spiritual, and intellectual growth, isn't just our little human story. It's a vital part of a much larger restoration plan.
Our struggles here ripple outwards, potentially.
Our successes and failures here determine the next step in an universal process of rehabilitation and ultimately redemption. It makes everything we do feel weighty.
Incredibly weighty. Okay, let's bring it home. Part 5. The reconciliation and return. This is where Lake offers that really powerful reinterpretation you mentioned.
Yes, the line that just sticks with you. The fall may not be the end of grace, but its beginning.
That completely flips the traditional narrative, doesn't it?
Completely. Instead of seeing the fall or the exile as God or the universe giving up on us, it reframes it as the start of a very specific, very intensive intervention. The isolation is an abandonment, it's focused therapy. Customized, necessary, designed to restore us to full health and capability, but responsible capability this time.
And we're not just floundering around during this therapy session.
No, remember the ongoing supervision. Lake portrays us as a guided species. The containment, the physical laws, the distances, crease the safe space, the incubator, you could say. And within that, we have the time and the challenges needed to rediscover harmony. Harmony with ourselves, with each other, with the environment, and maybe with the larger cosmic order or creator we were alienated from.
So the structure is pretty clear then.
Yeah.
Something went wrong. We got relocated and contained by physics.
Yeah.
The resulting hardship forces us to develop key virtues.
Right. Stewardship, humility, moral balance.
And if we succeed, the goal is reconciliation, a return.
Exactly. And that implies the incredible abilities we supposedly had before aren't lost forever. They're just conditional, waiting for us.
Conditional on our moral growth.
Yes. The goal is to eventually return to that higher state, or maybe evolve into a new one, but equipped with the wisdom and ethical framework to handle that level of reality responsibly. The physical law is holding us back now. They're like cosmic placeholders, holding the door closed until we prove we won't misuse what's on the other side again.
So, wrapping up Lake's entire hypothesis, our exile, enforced by physics and distance, isn't the end of the story. It's the necessary first step towards our ultimate reconciliation and becoming ready for that greater responsibility in creation.
That's the arc. It weaves together theology, cosmology, physics, history, psychology into this single grand narrative about limitation being the path to responsible, unlimited potential. The containment only lifts when we, as a species, demonstrate we don't need it anymore.
It even offers a potential, if speculative, answer to the Fermi paradox why we don't see aliens.
Perhaps. Maybe other species are also in their own solar system safe houses, undergoing their own tests, bound by similar cosmic laws until they achieve moral maturity.
A universe full of species in rehab. It's quite an image.
It certainly is.
Okay, that was a lot to process. An incredible deep dive into Justin Lake's Exile Hypothesis. Let's quickly recap some of the most striking takeaways. We started with this core idea. We're not from here originally. Our existence is a continuation after a prior state.
And then the really radical part. That physical laws, light speed, cosmic distance might not just be, but might be designed. Intentional cosmic barriers for our own containment and development.
Acting as prison walls, but also as the walls of a rehabilitation center.
Exactly. And then how Lake reframes all the negative stuff, hardship, limits, struggle. They become necessary tools for building empathy, patience, wisdom. Even those weird jumps in ancient tech could be echoes, remnants of that earlier state bubbling up.
It really flips the script from failure to
Yeah.
a mandatory guided process toward success. A very difficult one.
Okay, so we have to end with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Based on Lake's criteria for graduation, moral balance, humility, stewardship. If our ethical and spiritual progress is really the key that unlocks the cage, what specific changes, what moral shifts do we actually need to achieve globally before this supposed safeguard of the solar system might be lifted.
Yeah, what does passing the test look like in practice?
Is it ending war? Is it achieving true global equity? Does humility mean we finally stop seeing ourselves as masters of nature? Or is it, as Lake heavily implies, successfully reversing the environmental damage we've done to Earth? What's the specific threshold we need to cross to prove we're ready for unsupervised access to the cosmos?
That really puts the responsibility squarely on us, doesn't it? Not just on scientists finding a loophole in physics, but on the moral choices of everyone.
It was fascinating to explore this really mind-bending source material.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into containment, renewal, and the possibility of a cosmic second chance.